All right, welcome to the workshop formula. Now, this training is based upon over 15 years of experience public speaking, doing workshops, giving over 300 workshops, helping others give over 10,000 workshops, and coaching people on how to get high conversions through powerful workshops. Right, so this is going to be a formulaic step-by-step process to get you as many yeses as possible, so as many people in your audience move forward with your offer. All right, so let's dive into this. So in order to really uh, get us down, we need to really ask ourselves, why would someone say no? Why would someone say no to your offer? Now, here's some assumptions. If you have a service or a product that is massively valuable, right? It has the ability to transform their lives or their families' lives and their future, then why would someone ever say no? So I obsessed over that question for a really long time because I was tired of people not saying no. I knew I had something massively valuable that could transform their lives and futures, but people would still say no. So I just really thought about this and contemplated for a long time, and what I'm about to share with you is the product of that. So I started to reverse engineer the entire formula, right? Starting with the end in mind. Why would someone say no? And if this thing is that valuable, what would be some of the reasons, right? What are the objections? Where did I not build the value? What did I not do? Right? And so I figured out the formula through trial and error. Now, as I started to study sales later, after I had already really perfected this formula, I started to see exactly what I was doing. And as I started to coach people in this process, I saw what they weren't doing and key things that they were leaving out, or things that they were doing that was causing a negative impact, right? And so ask yourself that question. If your thing is so valuable, why would someone ever say no? And the reality is that we've not given them the logical or emotional certainty that they need to move forward, or we haven't handled their objections. So let's dive into the formula, and it's a detailed one. Okay, so really we need to look at, what do they need to know to say yes to your solution, right? You have the solution to their problem, but more importantly, what do they need to believe to say yes to you? Because you might give them logical certainty around your service, right? But they may not know that they need to see you. If they don't believe, because this is an emotional thing, if they don't believe that you're the one that they have to see in order to get the result, to get the solution, then they will go somewhere else. They'll go someone closer, someone less expensive, in network with their insurance, or some other convenience that they perceive. And so here's the formula. And we need to realize, the people have some sort of pain, they have some sort of problem, right? And you have a solution. You see but it's not this simple, because their pain is much bigger than your solution, at least in their minds when they're at your workshop, right? And depending upon what you're offering, what your workshop is on, they may, this solution might be even smaller. They may think that you have no right even speaking on the topic, depending upon your profession or what they perceive about your profession, or and so they may see see you and your solution as really, really small, right? In this process of getting their pain solved, right? So it's an uphill battle from the beginning. Right, so what we need to do is we need to make it so super incredibly clear that your solution just makes total sense, total logical sense. That's going to be the logical certainty, right? However, again, that's not enough. The thing that causes people to buy is emotional certainty, and that's when they believe that you and your service and your office or your business are the ones to solve the problem, right? So this is how we do it. Now, here's the formula. I told you it was going to be a little crazy, right? Now, you don't have to memorize it. I'm going to go through each step and I'm going to break it down and make it simple. But these are the various steps that we have to have in place in order to get as many people to say yes. Now, you can certainly get a whole bunch of yeses, but you're not going to have nearly as many people if you skip some of these, and some are going to be more important than others in the process. But let's dive into this. Now, the very first piece of the equation are these things right here. And these things right here need to be infused into your entire presentation and performance. Because again, maybe I haven't shared it here, I've shared it a lot of other places. A presentation is not a lecture, it's a performance, right? It is, there's acting going on. It's a show. It should, when you get really good, because you need to learn to use your voice in a certain way. And we're going to be diving into a whole lot of how to do that. And when we go into trainings on public speaking and tonality, things like that. However, these are the things that have to be in a workshop. You have to lead with authenticity, vulnerability, and the mission, right? When you lead with these things, authenticity, vulnerability, and the mission, you will enroll people, right? People want a mission bigger than themselves, and oftentimes they don't have one. Now, when they see you and you have a big mission and you have a big purpose and a big why, then they're going to look up to you. They're going to see you as a hero. They're going to see you. They're going to feel very positive emotions toward you when you lead with the mission, right? And they understand it's about the mission and not just your financial gain or your ego, right? So authenticity, vulnerability, being a real person, sharing, especially if your why is connected to the workshop and the pain of that, workshop, sharing in a very authentic and vulnerable way, it brings people closer. It builds rapport, it builds trust, and helps people see that you're a very real person. So build this authenticity, vulnerability, and mission into the entire presentation. And throughout, it's all about building rapport, trust, and credibility, right? Rapport, trust, and credibility in you, the solution or your product or service, and your company. Right, those are the three places, and we don't always have to build it as much with the company. It depends on what kind of business you're in, but absolutely around the solution and yourself. All right, so now we're going to go. There's going to be 4 main areas of this workshop formula. The first section is the opening, right? And so this is the first section, and it starts with building some intrigue. Right, we want to build intrigue, especially if you have a product or service that is not typically perceived as something that would solve the problem associated with the workshop, right? And so saying something like, the reason that we get the types of results that we get in our business, right, is because we have a different approach, right? That's a combination of intrigue and boldness, being bold, right? The reason that we get the types of results that we do in our business, in our practice, is because we have a different approach, right? And so because people want and need different, and you're differentiating yourself, if you're not different, why do they even need you, right? They can go anywhere, they can go to anyone, right? So the intrigue, the reason that we get the types of results, and the boldness, right? It pulls people in, right? Now, the next thing we need to do, we need to get an agreement around some core principles or core premises that the workshop is built upon. I'm a chiropractor, and so one of the core principles that I needed to make sure that the entire audience was in agreement on was that that human beings, living organisms, are designed to be healthy and not sick. Very simple, right? You need to we need to recognize and get into agreement, because that particular piece of information is important throughout any of my presentations. Now, you need to ask yourself, whatever business you're in, what do we need to be in agreement around? What starting premise do we need to be in agreement on? Right? And so one of the ways I did this, I would say, and in fact, and now this is how I tied in objections, right? Now this is where you need to think about, with your particular service, with your product, what objections are there? Right? What objections would this audience have? And it could be different for different audiences. So what are the objections, the core objections, the biggest objections, the objections that if you don't put these objections out there in the beginning, people are going to have those objections in their mind. They may or may not raise their hand and voice them. Typically, they don't, right? They just sit there. And so if you leave objections unspoken, you have a percentage of the audience who is not moving forward with you, even though they may be nodding their heads, on the outside. On the inside, they're shaking them, the opposite direction, right? And so as a chiropractor, one of the biggest objections potentially, well, there's two, right? There's one for me, especially because I was a pediatric chiropractor. So I saw children with all sorts of different health challenges, from ADHD to autism, sensory processing disorder, epilepsy, all sorts of different challenges. And so typically the public doesn't understand how I could be helping kids with those challenges. And so I need to address that. If I don't address that, then I'm gonna have a major problem. So think about your particular topic and your profession and how people perceive you and your profession. And are there any areas where they don't give you cultural authority? If you don't have cultural authority in an area, then that's gonna be a problem. For example, I'm working with a sleep medicine dentist, right? Most people don't associate dentists with sleep apnea and sleep medicine, right? However, dentists do have cultural authority, but it's around the teeth. Right. So we need to make the connection. The connection is that there can be airway obstructions, right? And that's very, very common with sleep apnea. And so that's a pretty easy objection to overcome. Now, the way I handled the objection, this objection of that chiropractic is only good for back pain, or some people in the public think that chiropractic is quackery. They've heard all these things that aren't actually accurate. And so they have this belief system. And so I need to address that and throw it out into the room. And most people aren't expecting me to do so. So it's important for you to throw those objections out. And so what I would say was, the reason that we get a different result, because we have this really wild and crazy belief, right? We have this wild and crazy belief that you're actually designed to be healthy and not sick. How many of you also share this wild and crazy belief, right? And of course, the public believes that they're actually designed to be healthy, not sick. They know that the body is constantly striving to be healthy. If we have a broken bone or a cut, the body heals itself, right? This is a common awareness, right, that we all have. So the reason I say this really wild and crazy belief is because obviously it's not crazy and wild. And I'm setting myself up for the next thing. And I say, in fact, I don't know if you've heard this, but some people have even said that wild belief, it's actually one of the reasons why some people have said that chiropractors are quacks. I don't know if you've heard that or not, right? Notice how I'm whispering, I'm lowering my tone, I'm bringing people in. So that's part of the art of public speaking. However, what I just did there was I tied that belief to chiropractors' belief systems that people are designed to be healthy and not sick, which of course everyone actually believes. Right. And so now what I did was I threw the elephant in the middle of the room, and I'm having my audience actually slay the elephant and get that elephant out of the way. Right. And so now I can start to move forward. However, there's still the objection that chiropractic is only good for neck pain and back pain. And I say, hey, and so that's why we need something like a pattern interrupt. All right. So now we're into this area of pattern interrupt. So ask yourself, what type of amazing result do you have? And not everyone needs this. Now, everyone should use social proof. So that's why, social proof is there. The pattern interrupt is really there for professionals, presenters who really need something that, and it's powerful for everybody, but something that's going to break a pattern of thought, right? And really cause people to think and be like, whoa, wow, okay, I never, how does that work? Or it causes them to think and break their belief systems. And so at this point is when I would share a very powerful testimonial, something around so I would see a lot of epilepsy cases, and I would share, a story of a child who went from 60 seizures a day to 0, right, in 4 weeks. And that's so outside most people's belief systems and awareness that it causes a pattern interrupt. And I say, the reason I share that is because, hey, listen, I get it. I understand that, giving workshops over several decades, that the public, if they have a positive impression of chiropractic, what do they typically think it's good for? right? And so, of course, that's when they would start saying neck pain, back pain, all those sorts of things. Now, notice I'm also using a lot of Socratic, methods, right? So, to get people to get involved. I'm asking questions versus just stating things, which is also super important. So the purpose here, you have the social proof. That's to build, again, rapport, trust, and credibility, right? Is what we're trying to do. So we're building some trust and credibility by sharing some really great results, a testimonial around your product or service. So now this next one, belief suspension. Now this is really around whether or not, again, you have a product or service where the public doesn't really understand that it's connected to their problem, right? That you're talking about, that you attracted them to your workshop. So that's why I'd say, the reason I share that story, is because listen, I get it. I understand that the public doesn't necessarily understand or recognize that chiropractic could help with these things. And so my request tonight, my ask of you, is that just for tonight, just go ahead and take whatever beliefs you have about what it is, and just go ahead and take them out of your head, just pull them out through your ear, set them down on the ground. And at the end of the evening, if you'd still like to keep those beliefs, you're more than welcome to take them with you. However, if you no longer need them, then we'll be happy to discard them. Sound fair? Right. So very playfully, but I was also very specific. I said, my request is this, that just for tonight, right? That's where we do use things like minimizers, right? Just for tonight, right? And my tone, real, like just tonight. And you just take whatever, I'm making this request so that I can have an open audience, right? And once you have it, that's when you can start to go into the presentation soon. Not quite yet. And keep in mind, if you don't do all these things in the beginning, your audience isn't fully ready. Right? And that's where I see the majority of presenters actually mess up, right? When I talk about the most common challenges with workshops and where do most presenters mess up, it's right here at this point in the talk, because they miss these things, right? And so now we've asked them to suspend their beliefs, right, just for tonight, right? And now we go into trust and credibility. And I do this by sharing a slide that shows different references and resources and experts that this talk is based upon. Right? And it depends on what you're selling, what your workshop is about. But this can be extremely valuable, again, if you need to build more trust and credibility. And so for me, if I'm speaking on all these different health topics, then I'm going to put different journal images, like the different journals that I'm going to be referencing later, and different books by authors who are recognized experts in the field. And I'll say, hey, listen, over the years, I realized it was like, I was giving people information through a fire hose. I certainly couldn't cover all this information in an hour. And so what I've done is I put together a list of references and resources. They just realized this presentation is not based upon my opinion. It's based upon peer-reviewed journal articles and experts in the field, right? And when it's my opinion, I'll let you know. All right, so I'm building trust and credibility. I'm also going to let them know that I'm going to be sending them some emails with more resources. So, and again, there's so much information that I want to share with you that over the next few weeks, I'm going to send you some emails with more resources, information. So don't feel like you have to take copious notes tonight because you'll be getting that information. And if you don't want it, just go ahead and hit unsubscribe. You won't hurt my feelings. So I'm letting them know that I'm building trust and credibility, that this is not just my opinion, and I'm showing them some imagery to help build some trust and credibility. Now, this is also a great place to do a little bit of pre-selling and to take out some sales phobia. And the way we can do this is say, hey, and just I'd like you to know this, that of course tonight, people are, whenever I do workshops like this, people obviously want to know what it looks like to work with us, right? And we'll tell you more about that later in the evening. However, just realize that the information I'm going to share tonight has the power to massively transform your life and your family's life, regardless of whether you ever step foot in this office again. Right? And so just know that if you apply this information that I'm going to be sharing tonight, it could massively transform your health and well-being in future. Right. So that's to decrease the sales phobia, because some people might be, okay, what are they trying to sell? Right? What are they trying? I also let them know that there was going to be an offer too. So that's the pre-selling, and then you take out the sales phobia. Right. So this is the opening. And again, that's a lot. Now, if it took a long time for us here because I had to explain it. I had to go through each section. But when you're doing it, it will go a lot faster. So, but think about all these different areas. How am I going to address each single one of these? All right, so that's the opening. Now we're going to transition into the section where you are the guide, right? So in a presentation, the audience is the hero and you are the guide. You're like Yoda from Star Wars, right? And they are Luke Skywalker, right? And so you're going to be the guide on this journey. And this is a place where we need to do some very important things to help move that hero along their journey to the place where eventually you're going to present the solution, right? So in this section, we're going to increase pain, right? And we're going to talk about the pain. We're going to talk about statistics around the problem, and we're going to increase the intensity of the problem. We're going to talk about the problem. We're going to talk fast. We're going to create some tension around the problem, right? Because we want to increase some pain, right? Because the people obviously they have awareness of the problem, but it's also, sometimes the problem doesn't feel as big, and we need to increase the pain. And then we're going to ease the pain, right? We're going to increase it. We're going to create more tension. And next, we're going to start to break it down to make it more simple. And with the ease part, I like to give people a framework, right? A simple framework, either, a diagram, something simple to explain the problem, right? And the components of the problem. And this starts to pre-frame your solution, right? So in a health talk, for instance, if it's talking about a certain challenge, I would talk about the 4 areas of health, that the 4 biggest systems of the body: the nervous system, the immune system, detoxification system, gastrointestinal systems, right? And then on this diagram, they would see the nervous system at the top, and I say, why is it at the top? And they say, well, because it's the master system. It's the most important system. That's what people will say, because that's what they know. They do know. So the things that they do know that are associated with your solution, you want to get them to state it and to share it and to understand it. And so that's why I have that slide there and say, yeah, it's the master system, right? And you support them and validate what they say. So now through the talk, we're going to give them a framework to ease the problem, okay? Because you're the guide, right? They need to see that, okay, this guide knows what they're talking about. And that's where we now give them logical certainty, increased trust and credibility, and social proof. And we might repeat that a few times, right? Depending upon the presentation, how much time you have. So logical certainty, that every step of the way makes total sense. Right, to get them, to the point where, okay, yeah, that solution makes total sense. So you have to look at, does the presentation, each slide, does the next slide build on the next? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Right, it's a deductive process. That makes sense. Increase some trust and credibility by putting in some social proof, right? Or put in some research or some data, right? To help, that's not your data, right? You get some studies or other things, experts to serve as a trust and credibility, increase that around the logical certainty. And now some social proof, some testimonials of people who were having similar challenges and the amazing results that they had. You don't want to necessarily focus on the solution yet, though. You just talk about, they had this, but then they had this, right? Then they were experiencing this, but then they got to this place, right? Because that's what everyone wants, is that place. Now, if there's any objections that you might have to solve as well in this process here, you can do so. Sometimes some of the objections might be around other solutions, right? Some, other solutions, competition, right? Other competitors. If you have a service or product where there's other options, then that's what we want to address those throughout this section. Now, the key though is not to attack those things, right? You don't want to attack, because if you come from a place of attacking, people, you will turn people off. People will see it as, oh wait, well, why does he have to attack that, right? And instead, you can poke holes, very covertly, right? So poke some holes, ask some questions, get them thinking, right, about some of the things that they already know, like they already understand about the negative aspects of the other options out there, right? The cons of the other options. So think about how you can build that in throughout this section in a way that doesn't come off as attacking, because if you attack that thing, you are going to turn off some of the people. Maybe not everybody, but you are going to turn off some of the people, and you'll lose some people. All right, so now we go into emotional certainty and some pre-sale, some more pre-selling, right? And you can do this in a couple of ways. One, emotional certainty, often when you're talking about testimonials, so some more social proof. Also, your passion and purpose here, like when you're talking about these testimonials and you're talking about the mission and just, for example, this is where I would do some pre-selling too and build emotional certainty. I would often do talks around children's health, ADHD, autism, that sort of thing. And we get to a place where we're talking about logical certainty and around the problem. And parts of the problem that I would address was this fight or flight stress response, this autonomic nervous system stress response. And what I'm talking about, I talk about when we check families, because in this office we love helping families, right? That's a little bit of pre-selling. So getting the idea that we see whole families, we see lots of families in this office. When we do scans of their nervous system, when we look objectively at the state of their nervous system health, who do you think has the worst scans? Is what I say. And people will often say the child. Say, actually, it's the moms. It's the moms, because those moms you guys have been fighting and taking your kids to all the appointments, and fighting with the schools and with the getting services and up all night researching and doing all the things and so massively stressed. You're typically the primary caregivers, and what moms do really great is they put everyone else's needs first oftentimes. And so what happens when the child starts to get better? What do you think happens to mom's health? And so most of the time they say, oh, the mom starts to get better. I say, actually, it's the opposite. They actually start to shut down. Their bodies have been going for so long that they actually start to give out and they start to get sick. And so that's why we check whole families here in this office. So a couple of things I did there. I created some more emotional certainty around what we do and why we do it, through my tonality and then also just through the explanation, but also pre-sold in terms of letting them know, like, hey, this is what we do, and they're going to be thinking, oh, maybe I should get checked too. Right? So think about how you can build pre-sales and more emotional certainty into this section where you are the guide. All right, so now that you've gone through that section, we now get to the solution, right? And so this is where we are going to now state the solution. Now here's how I address this, right? This is how we do this part here, right? And we're going to explain it, the thing, right? Give them some, a definition for the solution, and then build trust and credibility. Social proof, more trust and credibility, emotional certainty, social proof, and throughout it all, relatability, making it relatable so that it makes sense. So this, when you do it in this manner, you're going to, again, present the solution. Here's what we do, and here's how we do. Not necessarily how we do it yet, but here's the solution. Here's what we address. Right? Here's what I address. Here's the thing that I do. Now you want some more trust and credibility. So I wouldn't throw social proof in next. I would go with a study, some research, some data that supports the thing that you do in terms of their problem and the cause of their problem, right? In that previous section, we're talking about the cause of their problem. Like that's the logical certainty part. Okay, that makes sense. Now here's a solution. Now here's some trust and credibility around, we're trying to create logical certainty here around how your solution actually addresses the cause of the problem, right? So we tie it together. Then we provide social proof, right? Because at the end, the social proof increases that emotional certainty, right? That's what it's there for. It shows people that, other people just like them, relatability, had this problem. However, when they did the thing, they experienced this, right? So this process here, we just want to repeat it a few times, depending upon how much time you have. Typically, you want to repeat this, do this like 2 to 3 times right here. So have 2 to 3 social proofs, 2 to 3 trust and credibility sections. All of that builds the logical certainty and emotional certainty. And then all of it ties together relatability, making it relatable. So those social proof sections, those testimonials should be super relatable. And they, if you're doing a workshop, say on, let's say wills and trusts, if you're an attorney and doing a talk on wills and trust, you wouldn't want a testimonial about divorce, right? That wouldn't make sense. A great divorce outcome, right? And so make it relatable. Okay, so that's the solution section. Now we're getting to arguably one of the most important parts. The 2 most important parts of your talk are going to be the opening and now the close, or what I call the opportunity, right? And I call it an opportunity because, and it's a funny story on how it all came about, but one day I was talking to my son, and he was probably about 8 years old, 9 years old at the time. And I was saying, I'm trying to help all these individuals that I'm coaching become better at the close. But, I've never liked the word the close. It's kind of, it's impersonal, and it doesn't really represent what's actually happening, which is really just giving people an offer for an opportunity. Right. And he said, well, why don't you call it an opportunity? Right. And so I often share this, especially because this is where most presenters have the greatest challenge in giving a close. And so why not look at it as an opportunity, right? Because here's the thing. If your service, if your product is so valuable, that you decided to give a workshop and attract people with these massive problems, and you're telling them that this could transform their lives if they just did this next thing, then that means that you have an ethical and moral responsibility to give them an amazing opportunity, to give them an offer, to give them an opportunity to come in, to find out, to use your service, to buy your product, the thing that's going, unless the thing is not worth it, right? And that's a whole nother problem, and you shouldn't be in this course. But the reality is you're here because you have something really valuable to transform people's lives. And this is where we need to shine and not shrink. I will tell you, this is where most people shrink. And most people shrink here for a couple of reasons. They shrink here because they have limiting beliefs around imposter syndrome. They feel like, who am I to be doing this? They don't want to toot their own horn. They don't want to talk about themselves so much. They have limiting beliefs around sales. They think that this is going to be sound or too salesy. So it's really about their perception of what people think of them. So it's a limiting belief about how other people view us. And especially in this like salesy kind of, people have negative associations with sales too, and what that means also. So ask yourself, do you have any challenges around these things? Imposter syndrome, or not being good enough, smart enough, deserving, all these different things. Limiting beliefs around sales and what sales is. Really, this is, sales, everyone sells. Every time we open our mouths, we sell. We're always selling something. We're selling our spouses on the idea of where we should go to dinner or not. We're selling our kids on why they should do their homework. We're selling, people all the time on different things by opening our mouths. And so really what you're doing here, you're just having a conversation and giving people the most important next steps, like how to work with you, this is how your life can be transformed. So look at it. If you're having any challenges with those limiting beliefs, start to look at it as an opportunity and one that you have an ethical and moral responsibility to become great at. Most of us want to rush through this section because we spend way too much time on the guide section where we're giving people way too much logical certainty, right? Instead of emotional. This is where we have to put, this is the part that if it doesn't go well, you could have just given a great presentation, great information, and people will walk up and say, "Oh, thank you so much. That was great information." And then they wave and walk out the door, right? Without doing anything, without moving forward, without having their lives transformed. Right? And so this is where we have to shine. This is where we have to shine. So let's take a deep breath and look at this, right? And that's what I encourage. When you get to this point in the talk, take a deep breath, slow it down, get connected to what's at stake, right? And that's why it's important to start with social proof. Start with a strong testimonial, a strong, one of your one of your strongest testimonials around your service. And if you don't have one yet, or if you don't have a lot of testimonials, borrow them from your colleagues, borrow them from other people, and talk about, because you will have those testimonies, you will have those things as you move forward and do these types of workshops, and you're reaching the people that need you the most, right? And so borrow their certainty for a bit. Don't say that it was your testimonial. Just say, hey, when someone had this and they did this, they used the solution, this is what happened, right? So share a really strong social proof testimonial here, and it should be really emotional. If you have video, it's even better because people can connect more emotionally with video. And if it's just an image, otherwise just put an image and a quote, or just the image, and tell the story. Practice telling the story over and over, so it's really impactful. Now, the next thing I have on there is minus if. Okay, this is if needs to be absolutely removed from your language unless you're using it very strategically to minimize something. But I will tell you this. I was on a coaching call with a client, and they were talking about they couldn't figure out why they'd have 30 people in the room, but only 5 people were moving forward, right? That's a big problem. And so we were doing one-on-one coaching and going through the close, and I said, well, yeah, I feel like I'm doing a really good job here. And then I said, okay, well, let's hear it. So he'd do the testimonial part and then say, now, if this message resonates with you, then X, right? If this message resonates with you tonight, right? If this message resonated with you. Well, my question to him was, wait a second, why would the message not resonate? Why wouldn't it resonate with everybody? Right? If this is something, you have a room full of people with the problem that you say that you can solve, and you have a solution for it, and it can massively transform their life, why would it not resonate? The only reason it would not resonate is if someone didn't do a good job of what I just described, building, handling the objections, building the emotional and logical certainty, building rapport, trust, and credibility. Right? However, that's not what it was about. It was more about his limiting beliefs. It was around his limiting beliefs of not wanting to come off salesy, right? And so we took that out, and his results transformed, because if cannot exist. Again, if cannot exist because you are stating that your solution has the potential to massively transform lives. That means that you cannot have if. You have to lead here, right? And so we take if out. It is not allowed in your opportunity here. So we provide the social proof, and then we say, when we give classes like this, when we give workshops like this, I want to give everyone an opportunity, to find out, to see how we can massively transform your health and well-being and quality of life, right? And not just for you, but for your entire family, right? So that's why right now, after the social proof comes the opportunity. It's a massive one. You should be using big words. You should be telling people, that it's a massive opportunity. And we give everyone the opportunity to find out, to see, right? To find out, to see. Those are find it depends on your service, what your product is, but ultimately you want people to visualize, to see how we can massively transform the health and quality of life and well-being of you and your entire family, not just yourself, or not just the one you came to learn about tonight, but your entire family. Right. And if you have other people in the room too who you could be serving, but they're maybe not connecting the dots fully yet. Right. For example, when I did these talks, I would have teachers, I would have other types of providers in the room, other people who just came to learn, right? But they didn't necessarily identify with the problem. And I say, so I would call them out. You have to identify them, right? And for you teachers and for you providers and others in the room who don't necessarily have this problem, this opportunity is for you as well. Right now, in my solution, I have a solution that removes stress and interference from people's lives, right, and improves their overall health and quality of life and function. So that's for everybody, right? So I didn't always say that though. It was focused on the person with the problem. But if you have people in the room who you could be serving with your service or product, right, but they don't necessarily have the problem, make sure you're talking to them and calling them out specifically by name so that they know it's for them too, right? Then if you don't, you will have fewer people say yes at the end. So we want to give everyone a massive opportunity to find out. Now, this is where we need to make sure that our offer is optimal, right? And I'll explain this in a second. And we also tie in process certainty together here, right? So, because here's the thing, if you now you just told them that you have this massive opportunity to see how you can massively transform their lives, and then you tell them that opportunity is only $20 or $40, then you've now just really significantly devalued the solution, either consciously or subconsciously in your audience's minds. Right. So because I'm like, wait a second, you just said it was all this. So for example, my first visit was normally $350. However, when I did workshops like this, I offered it for $150 for an individual or $250 for an entire family. Now, the $250 for the entire family is a lot. The $150 is a nice discount, but it's not $47. It's not $27. It's at an amount that maintains value. And also the $250 is because it's for the entire family. And I explain why. I say, and only $250 for an entire family, because we value taking care of whole families in this office. And we want to make sure that as many families as possible are functioning at their best, right? So you make it, and if you have a deeper discount for something else, then you have to really stress the altruistic nature of the opportunity, right? So now we need certainty around process and pricing. This is going to be a super important area where we give people this important certainty around process and pricing. And if we don't, then we are going to have people who have lack of predictability, which creates anxiety, right? If you don't tell people what's next, if they don't know what's next around the process or the full pricing, then they're going to have anxiety. They're not going to be able to move. Think about when you didn't know some important piece of information, how it stopped you from moving forward on buying something, right? So the process is what you do next. So for example, I would say on that first visit, we're gonna sit down together. We're gonna have a comprehensive consultation where we understand everything that's been going on to lead to this point. And from there, we're going to look at your nervous system scans. We're going to take x-rays, and we're going to understand exactly what's going on and see exactly what's going on, so that we know how to, number one, can we help you? And two, what is it going to take? Like how long is it going to take? And what degree of challenge do you have? Right. So you need to give them the certainty around the process. And so from there, I would say what I do after that too. After that, we'll have you come back for your next visit where we review your scans and your x-rays, and we talk about a course of action for correction, where most individuals when on a corrective care plan are typically coming in twice a week for the first 8 to 24 weeks, right? That's a corrective phase. Then we go down, and typically at that point, we're able to go down in frequency because every 14 visits, we're doing progress exams. So we know exactly where you're at in your corrective process. And most individuals at the end of that first phase are able to go into supportive care. Where now we're able to go down in frequency because now your body's holding and maintaining those changes that we've been making. Okay, so then I went in, so that's the certainty around the process. And that's their most important, so that they know that I know how to solve their problem, and that also builds more emotional certainty. Okay, this person knows what they're doing. They know how to do this. This is okay. And also some logistics, right? That also was time, that it was going to take time. Time was going to be involved. Now pricing. When on a corrective care plan, most individuals are paying between X and X, right? And so you give them, if you're on monthly pricing, you give them some digestible range, right? So that they can understand what it's going to take, right? Somewhere between you're close to your highest amount to lower than your lowest amount, because depending upon what you have and what you're offering, because there's a couple principles I live by, and my office live by, and my business live by. So you have to think about this and how it applies to yours. So because the next piece, we need to handle some objections and questions. And if you're in healthcare, one of the most common questions or objections is going to be around, do you take my insurance or not? And if you don't take insurance, then you need to handle that. Otherwise, that's going to be a question. You want to take out all questions by addressing everything. So think about, what are all the questions that people have around your product or service, and try to answer them, and the objections, as many as you can, so that there's nothing left at the end. There's no questions, there's no objections. They've all been handled. And so here's where we go into the in terms of the also certainty around pricing. This is more about emotional certainty here too. And I'll say, now I'm not in network with insurance. However, many of our patients here have out-of-network coverage. And so what we do is we simply give them a super bill, and they submit that to their insurance, and then they get reimbursed directly. So if you have out-of-network coverage, that's what we'll do for you. However, I will tell you this. We work exceedingly hard to ensure that care is both accessible and affordable, and that finances is never the reason that anyone would ever choose not to at least find out and move forward and see how we could be of service. Right. So I share that, and then I'll say, and also realize this, that something is always better than nothing. Right. And so the next most important step is finding out. Right. So if we break that down, we handle one of the objections, and we also, in terms of pricing, we made it clear that we're gonna figure this out together. We're gonna come up with a solution, because for me, I'm trying to move them to the next step, which is an exam, the next thing. Now, whatever your service is or your product, that's gonna be different for you. You might be selling a $5,000 program right then and there. Right. And so it's going to be different. You need to look at your process, your thing, and do you have options too? I said there's always a way to move forward. Well, in my office, I had multiple different care plans depending upon what was going on. Right. And due to time, distance, finances, a lot of different reasons, someone might choose one option versus another. And so do you have options for people? And if you don't have options, I would encourage you to think about what are some other options. So there is always a way for people to move forward with you. So now we're getting to the FOMO. And this is a part that a lot of people leave out because they are afraid. And it also goes back to limiting beliefs, right? In fact, I know this because I did this, right? And so the FOMO, the fear of missing out, typically the best way to do that is that this opportunity is only good, is a limited amount, and it's only good for, it's only good for tonight only. Right. And here's why. Now, I didn't do that. I didn't do it well before. I used to skip it a lot of times because it felt icky. It did feel salesy to me. It didn't feel right. But then I started to think about it, and I realized that this was more about this. I needed to do this. I needed to do it for them, not for me. Right. Because the reality is this, and this is how I share it in a way. And I encourage you to adopt this, and you can swipe it. Do it in a way where it makes total sense why you are doing the FOMO, right? And so it's not because so I tell them I'm very authentic and vulnerable, right? I tell them, say, hey, listen, the reason I do that is not to be a jerk, and it's not to force you into doing anything that you don't want to do. It's because in doing these workshops, over the last 20 years, I saw something that happens almost every time. And that's this. In just a moment, many of you are going to walk up to the front. You're going to schedule your first visits, and we're going to see you, and we're going to see some massive transformations. I know this because we do this all the time, and that's what happens. However, there's some of you here tonight that are going to go up to the front. You're going to get ready to schedule. You may even schedule, and then you're going to say, oh wait, I have Johnny's soccer practices that evening. I forgot about that. Or I need to talk to my spouse, and I'll call you tomorrow. However, here's the thing that I've seen over those years is that tomorrow rarely ever comes for those people, right? And so so when I say that, what do you think happened with the room? People start nodding their heads and they're like, yeah, that's me, right? Because we all do it. We all procrastinate. We all put things off. And so I realized that I needed to do that for them, for some people in the room, because some of the people need to hear that. Otherwise, they're not going to move forward, right? They need to be called out. And we do this in an authentic, loving way and share. This is why I do it, because tomorrow never comes for those people. And so the people that I can help are the ones who take action tonight, the ones I know I can help, the ones who schedule that appointment, who come in for that first visit. And we see and find out. Because imagine this, imagine if your problem was being caused by that issue and we never checked, we never found out. Imagine if now you go back to the testimonial that you shared, imagine if Mary had never found out, what would have happened to her life, right? And so we go back to that, that's the emotional, we go back to the emotions, right? And what if, like, man, it's the thing is right here, the solution's right here. What if that's it, right? What if that's the solution to all those problems and pains and issues in your life was just on the other side, right? And so it also, that's where the tonality comes in too, right? Is in my voice right now, you should be hearing this imperativeness of, man, if you just did this one thing, life could be so much different, right? And that's my certainty, because I know that it would be. And so think about what kind of emotions do you need to get out into the room? Because our voice is really just a tool to convey emotion. So many of us look at it as a tool to convey information, but that's not what it is. It's a tool to convey emotion. And that's what we need to dive into if we're going to become great at public speaking and great with workshops. Right? So now I already told people what they're going to do. I did a little bit of pre-selling. Many of you are going to go up to the front. Now we're going to be direct. All right, so just we're about to end the presentation. Mary at the front has the clipboards with the available appointment times. So in just a moment, we're going to end. And so here's what I want you to do next. As soon as we're done here, get up, go up to the front. As I mentioned, we only have those 10 spots available. And make sure you go up right away to get the spots that are going to work best for you and your family. And I'm not going to take, so we're very direct. Say, here's what I want you to do next. Here's what I want you to do next. Okay, here's what I want you to do next. Let them know. Be direct. Be a leader. They need that. That's what, if your thing is that great and it's going to transform their lives, then you need to be the leader and tell them to do the thing. Now, the next thing that we need to do is let them know that you're not going to be taking questions. Now, questions can be great. Questions can be awesome, but questions can really just railroad, just destroy a talk. They can destroy a workshop, because you can get someone who you had all this energy, all this forward momentum, and then it just gets destroyed by someone who maybe is a skeptic, maybe someone who just wants to let everyone know how much they know. Now the energy, it's like people are looking at their watches, like, when's this going to be done? And all that momentum and energy that you just had and built is just now destroyed. Right, so let them know you're not going to take questions. Say something like this: in the interest of time and getting everyone home, quickly here, I'm not going to take any questions here publicly. However, I will be here for all of your questions one-on-one for as long as you need me. Simple, right? So please do come up. Please come up. Let's chat. Right, you're letting them know we're going to do this thing. However, I'm going to be here for as long as you need me, because guess what? When you buy the thing, when you do the next step, I'm going to be there for you as long as you need me then too. Right? That's what you're telling people by sharing that. And the last piece is, some of those people, you need them to come up to you. If they don't come up to you and talk to you, they're going to walk out without doing the thing. Right? And that's because they need one-on-one emotional certainty. Okay, and so this is really important. There's going to be 3 types of people come up to you after a talk. One is the person who just signed up for the thing you're doing and they're so excited, they can't wait. They just want to say hi, just high five them, tell them you can't wait to help them, and you'll see them soon. Okay, the next person though you need to avoid and get rid of, that's the energy vampire. That's the person who just wants to come up, take all your time, and they're going to tell you all the things that they know, and oh, when you said this, that was so great, and what do you think about this? They're asking all these questions, but they're not going to act. You need to identify that person right away, and divert that energy, turn from them, and say, oh, hey, that's a great question, but I see there's some people waiting here. I'd love to come back to that question, really go into that in depth in just a moment, right? Which is, you got to do something like that so you can go to the next person who's the most important person, and that's the person who needs a little bit more emotional certainty. They need one-on-one contact with you to ask you more about some specifics. They want to know that you have total emotional, that you have total certainty around their specifics, and they want to tell you a little bit more about what's going on with them. Well, hey, what do you think about, this is what's going on. What do you think? And that's where you say, hey, based upon everything you're sharing with me, Josie, I can tell you without a doubt that, well, number one, it sounds like this is exactly what what you have going on, and 2, that we can solve this, right? And we do it all day long. This is something that we help people with every day. So the next step is to find out. Let's do that next thing, right? So you tell them, that's what you just lead them to. So here's the next step. Let's go do this, and then you walk them up, to the front, to where the registrations are, where your sales are, whatever it is that you're offering. You walk them up, and once you get that confirmation from them that they agree that it is the next step, you walk them there and pass the baton to whoever's at the front, handling all that. So a lot of information here. This went a lot longer than I had planned, but it's clear that in order to have a fantastic outcome and get as many yeses as possible, that there's a formula to it. And if you follow all these steps and all these things and build them into your own presentation, I guarantee you will have way more yeses. Doesn't mean you won't have no's though. People will say no. And so it's important to be very clear on a couple things. Number one, no's are smoke screens. We need to assume that no's are smoke screens for lack of certainty, right? Lack of logical or emotional certainty in you, the product, the solution, or even your company, right? So think about if you're getting a lot of no's, right? If you're getting a lot of yeses and you're doing really great, then this may not be as much of an issue. But if you're getting a lot of no's, ask yourself, did you build complete logical and emotional certainty? Did you build rapport, trust, and credibility? Did you handle objections? Did you do all those things that I just mentioned in the opportunity, right? Or is there any areas where you can get better? Right? Because what I've seen over the years is typically most people aren't willing to really look in the mirror here the way that they need to. Right? It's very easy to not look in the mirror. It's very easy to instead blame the people in front of you, right? And the people in the room. But if those people have the problems that you say, number one, that these are big problems, these are really impacting their lives, and you're telling them that you have a solution and know how to solve those problems and transform their lives, then is it really the people that's the problem? Why would people not say? And because let's be frank, like people do GoFundMes for all sorts of things. They figure it out. They figure out how to pay for certain things. And so is it truly financial, or is it that they just don't believe that you or your service are the thing that can take them to that promised land? So we need to ask ourselves that. Now, keep in mind, there are people who you've done the best job possible. You've done all those things. And there's going to be some people that still say no, right? And that could have to do with logistics. It could be from an hour, or 2 away. It could have to do with time, that they don't feel that they have enough time. It could also have to do with their own limiting beliefs. And this is probably one of the biggest ones. If you've done everything else perfectly, that they don't feel worthy, or they don't want to invest in themselves, or they, all these different things, right? Or they don't feel like they're ready right now because of everything else going on in their lives. Maybe they're about to have a baby. Maybe they, you know, there's those other factors that we can't control for. But if we focus on the formula and take out all the other variables, then you will, the thing I am certain of, you will have as many yeses as possible, and you will absolutely start crushing your workshops and getting better results, transforming more lives. All right, thanks for listening. If you have any questions on this anywhere throughout, let me know. Let's go in the Facebook group, ask the questions, and go ahead and start looking at your own presentations and building all of these pieces into yours. All right, take care.